Hello. Today, this video is going to be talking about actions. Actions are one of those capabilities which make Simpli List View very powerful. It is often the case that users want to do many things to many different records, especially given lists. So you have a list of things and you want to perform an action on all of them. It could be something as simple as deleting the record. It could be something much more complicated where developers need to get involved to be able to perform those actions on the back end. But it is all possible. And so we're going to be discussing the different kinds of actions that we have today and how the actions drop-down works in general. So the combo box that we're talking about here is this particular one. For this example, I'm actually showing the list view action drop-down, Simpli List View, and so you can see the actions right here. The action, to start off with, we'll discuss the action box itself, and this action box can be added or removed based on different criteria. So, for example, if the admin decided that they wanted to remove actions completely for the entire app, they can go and do that. So we can go to the list views admin, and we can look for display action buttons, and we can set this to no. And what that will then do is it will completely disregard actions for every single list view across the entire app. Another alternative is to remove the action drop-down for a particular page or component. And so here I have the example component. I've clicked on it, and you can see all the attributes on the right-hand side, and one of them here is display actions. So we would just unclick that, and for this particular component, the action box would never get displayed. And this action display actions will override the admin if it is set to false. If it is set to true and the admin is set to false, then the admin will obviously win out. So, so just an FYI about how the org one works versus the component. So within the action combo box, we have all the actions, and of course the combo box will also not get displayed if there are no actions that are pertinent for this particular list view. And it may well be the case that there are no actions available for the given list view based on a number of different criteria. So if we have a look at the actions themselves here, you'll see all the information. Here's the labels, Apex class name, which is more from a developer perspective. The object type, which identifies whether this action is available for a particular object or not. Okay? And so in these examples, some of them I have where it's available for all list views. And so you can see the edit all as a good example of that, where if there is no object type, and so it is available in every single listing. But of course, another example here, maybe the update. This is a custom action, and it is specific to the account. And so it's only going to be available when we go and look at the account list views. So for example, here, we just do a drop down here, you can see that update is not included in this list. We also have is active. This is useful for if an action is causing problems, or if there is still one has been put into production and is not supposed to be made active yet for a while. We can set is active true or false, and is active if it's off. Obviously, it will never get displayed in any list. And then the other part to decide whether an action gets displayed is permissions. So this field identifies the permissions that are required on the particular list view that it's looking at to determine, just as a pointer to identify the kinds of permissions that are required in order to perform the action. Now this is not a permission check, it is purely a hint to identify whether the action should be displayed or not. So in this example, let's get a good example here. The new or clone buttons, actions, they have create permissions, and so what will happen is if a user selects a particular list view and they do not have permissions to create for that object, the clone and new actions will not be displayed. Now, that's all. It is only for display purposes, just to help everybody understand that. It does not do anything else, and it is really just a hint. So there are those three different areas that determine whether an action actually does get displayed. We have the object type, we have is active, and we have the display permissions to identify whether the user has access to that action. So what we're going to do now that we have understood the visibility of the action combo box itself, as well as the visibility of the individual items, we can talk about the out-of-the-box actions. A number of these actions are designed to be used across the app and available in really any list view situation. An example here is the menu. And so if we were to select the new action over here, it uses the standard out-of-the-box Salesforce functionality in order to display the new page layout and to allow a user to immediately create a new record. Because that is an out-of-the-box feature and it is available for all list views, this action is available to all, and so therefore the object type has not been set. It is the same with edit and clone, so we could click edit. Now of course here when I click edit, one of the things that I haven't done is select a record, and so it's going to say a single row must be selected. So there are cases where actions require that you select a record. There are occasions when you can only select one record, and there are occasions when no records need to be selected. A good example of no records being selected is the edit all. The edit all is an action that is going to allow us to perform inline editing. Now, this inline editing doesn't look that great because we have these multi-select combo boxes. If we were to go up to the account, perhaps, and look at all accounts, and select edit all, it makes it a little nicer. So no rows need to be selected for that action. We can then move forward and we can make changes and perform inline editing. So that was the edit all. Obviously the delete, we have to select a particular row and then it will allow us to perform the delete action. There are some here, like the set close lost. This is really an example. It's not supposed to be used in production really, and it perfectly matches someone's required functionality. Really this is only, as you can see if we go to select action here, it's only available to the opportunity. And so if we were to go to the opportunity here, we would be able to see that the set all or set close lost action is available. And in this particular example, what we're doing is we're setting multiple opportunities. Really is designed for using across multiples. We have 20 or 30 opportunities and we need to set them to close expired or whatever, and nothing's going to move forward with them. So you can select all of them and make changes. Just an example for developers to be able to add actions as they go. A fairly new action which has been added to the list available for creation is the hyperlink. There are cases where you might want a hyperlink to be available on either a specific list view or on all list views to be able to go to something. I have two example hyperlinks here, and actually what I'm going to do is at the moment they're set to only be displayed on the list view, and so we would need to go to list view here in order to see them. You can see that they're not set here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change this particular one so that the object type is nothing, and I'm going to save it. Then I am going to go back to the list view action. And, I have to, when you change configuration of an action, you need to refresh the page. And so what we'll do is we will refresh the page, we'll go down to the list view actions, and we should see the new action. So there it is, go to a cool app. Now this is a basic hyperlink. If we go and we look at the action itself, you will see that it really just is indicating that it is a hyperlink and that it is active. But what we also have here in the related list is a parameter, which is URL, and it has to be specifically URL. API name must be URL. It doesn't really matter the information, the other information that's provided, the label doesn't matter. The display order doesn't get displayed, so it doesn't really matter. And then you can see here the default value is the URL that is to be the user is supposed to be taken to. So if we were to, we don't have to select a record for this particular hyperlink. So if I just click on the hyperlink, it'll take me to the app exchange, to the Simpli List Views app, which is exactly what we want. Now, Simpli List Views also allows us to do URL substitutions, and this is important because if we need to go to an external app for a given a particular record, that's important because we might need to pass the record information in, and so there is also we have another example here where we it's really the same from in this example it's only available from a list view perspective. It is a hyperlink, and what we'll notice here is that there are now two parameters. The first parameter is the URL, which is always required. So if we click on that, you'll see the URL here. Now this is an internal URL. One thing you'll notice here is that there is a substitution. So we have internal ID, and we have it surrounded in $signs. Okay, so this indicates to us that it is a substitution that is to be made. Okay, and then the other parameter is, there we go, the other parameter is the actual internal ID itself. Okay, so this parameter says to us, the API name is internal ID, which is used in the URL to identify this parameter. And then the default value is the value of the field on the row that is, as an API name, that is to be substituted into this field. So what's going to happen is, Simpli List Views is going to go to the URL. It's going to say, yes, I have a substitution to be made here. It then says, I need to go and find a parameter that matches internal ID. It then finds the parameter, internal ID. It then retrieves the field name from the default value, and it goes and it sets that particular value. So if we go to the example again, and we select the action, and we click hyperlink example. Oh, see, a row must be selected for this action, because this is an action that does require a row to be selected. So we can select the apex coverage here. Let's select something else as a matter of fact. Let's go to custom opportunity example, and we select hyperlink example. It takes us to the custom opportunity example list view. So that's hyperlinks. The hyperlinks I haven't created an example, but it does allow us to have multiple substitutions. So if there's more than one value from the row that needs to be inserted, it can. There is the ID in this example is a special field. It does not need to be existing on the list view in order for that value to be passed in. You cannot just take any value from the object. It needs to be a value that is actually on the list view in order for us to be able to move forward with the hyperlink. The only one that doesn't need to be on the list view is ID. So that's it for actions for the moment. As always, send me an email if you have any questions, and if you have any features requests, or if you have any issues, then go to GitHub and make those requests. Otherwise, we will talk again soon.